I've had some staff growing pains, just the volume of work too has been other pains that have just made me cry at times.
I love bookkeeping.
Welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show. I'm your host, Ben Robinson, and today I have a friend and somebody that I've had the pleasure of meeting on several occasions. She's a bookkeeping professional specializing in serving the not-for-profit industry, and she lives in the Denver, Colorado area, one of my favorite cities in the world. She's married and has 3 great children and then a couple of furry children, as she says. So welcome to the I Love Bookkeeping Show, Amy McLaughry.
Hey, Ben, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I think the first time that we met was 2017 at Bookkeeper Boost. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, you were in a mastermind and then you came to Bookkeeper Boost. And then I think since then we've got to meet each other another 3 or 4 times and actually do some work together too. So it's good to chat with you yet again.
It is good to see you virtually.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot more virtual between the two of us than the physical, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's the new way you do everything. So
yeah, pros and cons to it, right? So we'll actually dive into some of that here today. So first important question, is there a lot of snow on the ground in Denver right now?
At this exact moment, no. If you go to the mountains, there's lots of snow, great time to go skiing, plan your spring break, head to the hills. But all the snow is melting here. So
don't worry, it'll be back.
I know. March is coming.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Beware the snow of March.
Yes.
That's one thing I love about Colorado Springs when I was in the Air Force. And you'd have a snowy morning, and then by afternoon, it would just be beautiful. And you could be outside in short sleeves almost.
Yep. Shoveling the snow.
Yeah. Shoveling. Exactly. All right. So, Amy, we've known each other. And one of the things that I always ask people here is that, like, why in the heck did you decide to become a bookkeeping professional? Was this a moment of weakness or strength? Like, what was the decision? Why did you become a bookkeeping pro?
So it's a combination of things. So I worked at a bank for 14 years and had climbed through the ranks and got to the point of, too many hours. My kids are getting older and this isn't for me. So I quote unquote retired. They're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I have no clue. I'm just going to retire. So I took some time off and actually ended up serving as an interim executive director for a nonprofit that I've been a part of for years. And that got me kind of back into the working world. And I went, I really want to do something, but what do I really want to do? Because the thought of going back to an office 8 to 5, I was like, oh God, I just can't do that. I can't get myself up in the morning. I don't want to get dressed. If I don't want to shower, I don't want to shower. Yet the high dramas of virtual work these days. And so I was like, well, what did I like in my old job? And I really liked the numbers. I loved crunching tax returns. I loved spreading tax returns. I loved dissecting numbers and figuring out where money was going and how to help people. And I loved, helping people buy homes, but that was all, it was more the financial side than the, you need to spend money or you need to take out a loan to do whatever. So I said, well, maybe bookkeeping. And so I started searching work from home jobs. And lo and behold, here's this crazy guy, kind of like him. He's on Penny Hoarder. I'll get his videos. Let's see. And so I watched all 3 videos more than once, I'm sure. Took lots of notes. I still have my notes, and it's funny to look back at them. And I started evaluating, okay, can I do this on my own? Can I learn bookkeeping? I'm like, oh, sure, I could go to Xero. I can do this. I can go to QuickBooks. I can do this. And then I'm like, okay, let's check out the marketing. And I went, oh, crap. Yeah, I have no clue, no idea what I'm going to do. How do you do this? And I was like, okay, this program has got to be worth it in gold. So I signed up for BBL on Memorial Day weekend in 2016 and have never looked back. It's been one of the best decisions and the best money that I've ever spent.
Well, that's awesome. And thank you for touting Bookkeeper Business Launch. But I know that you have put in your hours and that it was not a piece of magic for you. So let's kind of dissect, May of 2016 to almost 3 years later as we record this. So you signed up for the program. You signed up for a Bookkeeper Business Launch. You had some experience. Let's kind of talk about where you are today. How many clients do you currently serve almost 3 years later?
I currently have 18.
18.
18.
And are all of those nonprofits mainly?
90% of them are nonprofits. So I do have some outliers that are referrals from family and friends that I work with nonprofits. I can't say no. And so I brought them on. So
Okay.
there's
All
a
right.
couple out there. Yeah.
All right. So you went from zero to 18 nonprofits. And I know about nonprofits, these are not simple, right? So it's not like simple businesses where you're spending an hour a month.
Correct. Yes. It's not the type of business that is talked about in Bookkeeper Business Launch, which is simple, pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
I went in the opposite direction and said, give me one of the hardest industries probably that's out there, that's most complex. They have audits, different accounting practices. Sure, I'll go do that. That sounds like fun. So,
Right. Sure. Now, I think I know, but I want to make sure that everyone knows. What really pushed you to say, "Hey, nonprofits is where I want to spend my time and effort"?
um, I have been just involved with nonprofits for as long as I can remember. I have volunteered as teenagers. I was a teenager, not multiple teenagers. I volunteered at Children's Hospital. I volunteered at the Kemp Research Center. I've been on boards. I've been involved in my church since I was a little wee tyke. And so nonprofits are just something that's always been a part of me. And I've been on this board here in Colorado for going on 14 years now. And during my retirement, I had the opportunity to help move that organization in a different direction financially. And so that's kind of where I finally figured out, I know a lot about this industry. I know how they work. I understand the multiple hats that people wear. I understand the pains and sorrows that those EDs go through trying to do the books themselves. And I just felt like my personal experience with nonprofits, as well as my love for bookkeeping, would make a great marriage of the right industry for me to help.
And that's so great when you can marry your passion with your vocation.
Yeah.
And not only that, you can marry it with something that you're in control of almost to 100%.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
It's it's been fun to give back in ways that I love, and my clients, they love my insight, and they understand and they appreciate the fact that I've walked in their shoes. And that makes a difference too when they ask me questions. They're like, "Oh, have you done this? Have you experienced this?" And when I can say yes, they're like, "Oh, thank goodness, I'm not the only one." So
yes.
it's easy to get that buy-in and that trust pretty quick when they hear those kind of stories.
So May of 2016, here we are, 2019, 18 clients. So let's kind of dissect that. Let's go into it. When did you get your first client?
Oh, that's a long, sad story.
I don't want to cry today. Don't make me
No,
cry.
that's okay. No, so back in that day, I was like, okay, I have to have everything up and running. I have to have my website. I have to have LinkedIn. I have to have blah, blah, blah. And all this has to be just perfect. I need my business cards, the whole 9 yards. And so it also kind of coincided that I had everything done and ready to go about the same time that I was going to go on a week-long vacation to Alaska on a cruise. Well, it's a cruise. There's no internet access. Maybe I'll just delay launching and telling anybody till after the cruise. So, although I was done and ready to go, say the middle of July, early July, I really honestly didn't launch and really tell anybody till August when I got back, about August 15th. The older kids were back in school. I was like, okay, now I can do this. And it literally, I ended up with signing my first 3 clients within 2 weeks. Around Thanksgiving in 2016.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
crazy and stupid. I don't encourage anybody to sign 3 clients the week of Thanksgiving. It's not worth it.
And it seems that it always happens that way. We go through either these dry spells or where we just can't, the phone does not stop ringing with potential clients. That's always the way that I've experienced it. Even when I learned consistent marketing, it just seems like it came in droves.
Yeah.
So those first 3 clients that you got in November 2016, how did they come about? What did you use to get those clients?
The very non-conventional ways. The first one, I actually got a referral from a LinkedIn post. And so one of the parts of the training was update your LinkedIn profile and start reaching out to people. And literally the first day I had posted and you started reaching out. This consultant says, "Hey, I see you work with nonprofits. Let's chat." So that was one of them. And then the other
Okay.
two were actually, I applied for jobs through Indeed. And these were all remote nonprofits. Nobody had a physical office. And so the appeal of them having a virtual bookkeeper made total 100% to them. And so that's, yeah, totally unconventional. Don't necessarily encourage people to do that, but it worked. So it
Hey,
helped.
any and every way, those are great. Those are grassroots, and those cost you absolutely what? Nothing in
Nothing.
terms of, yeah. Have you ever spent a dime on advertising?
I have not.
Okay.
I've done
So,
none. Well, let me rephrase that. I have a website that is up,
mhm,
and so
right.
I pay for that. But beyond that, no, I have not done any marketing.
And that's one of the beautiful things about being a bookkeeping professional is that you can use the grassroots way to get in there and get clients. Now, that being said, you are still using a lot of elbow grease and a lot of energy because I know that you just didn't put that post up on LinkedIn. It doesn't magically happen. So there's a lot of effort involved in that. There's a lot of effort involved in replying to Indeed offers or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So we're always paying a price, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's either elbow grease, or we're paying with our time, our energy, or we're paying with money, and usually a combination of both.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and so now with 18 clients, what has been like the other 15 that you've gotten? What have been some of your best ways to go out there and get those clients?
The best way for me has been hanging out in Facebook groups where my nonprofit ideal clients are. And I'm able to participate in conversations. And I don't just participate on those conversations that have to deal with bookkeeping or payroll or how do you do XYZ and QBO or whatever. It's because of my background and my knowledge, I'm also able to participate in other ways. And so I'm in there. I try and hop in at least once a day, answer a question or two, provide some insight, add my 2 cents to a conversation. And occasionally there'll be that one post that says, "Hey, we're looking for a bookkeeper." And I'll say, "Hey, here's my contact info," or "Hey, can I, private message you my info," and go from there. And that has been the majority. That's the only way that I've been able to find a nonprofit client since then is through my Facebook conversations.
I love that because you fully buy into our philosophy, which is value first,
Mm-hmm.
and going out there and giving, and especially in numerous ways, especially with given your industry of not for profits. But everybody can take a page out of Amy's book in that going out there and not expecting to receive anything in return and just being helpful. And the indirect result of that is that it established you as an authority and an influencer right within that group.
Right.
And the great thing about having a specialty, having a niche, in this case, nonprofits, is that it becomes so much easier to do that. If you were in a group that was just for business owners, it's a whole lot harder for you to stand out and become an authority and become an influencer. It's going to take you a lot more time. So
Correct.
kudos to you for going after that, because that helps things tremendously.
Yeah.
So no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and it's been rough. I don't
Mhm.
want to, sugarcoat it.
Mm-mm.
Yes, I only have 18 clients, and there's plenty of other people who have taken Bookkeeper Business Launch and have 30, 45 clients. But there's a price that I have paid in a different direction. Nonprofits are really, really hard to break into, really hard. But two, the complexity is very different too. And so my price point is higher and they have to pay me more to get my services. Am I happy where I am? Sure. Would I love more clients? Most definitely. But just know niching, as you said, Ben, is definitely the key to some of the success and the key to my ability to get the right kind of client that I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to dive into kind of where you want to go with this here in just a jiffy. But you mentioned that it's not easy, and we are totally upfront about that. Number one, starting a business is not easy. Anybody who tells you that it is has either one, never done it, or two, is lying, right? Because there's so much freedom and flexibility comes with it, but on the other side of that, there's so much responsibility that goes along with it. And I embrace that, but a lot of people fight that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you're unemployable now?
If I had to go into somebody's office, yes. And in fact, I actually turned down a client because of that.
Yeah.
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 I was like, no. You want me to drive? You mean I
Yeah.
have to like drive to your
I have to
office?
shower?
And she's like, well, couldn't we do it this way? And I'm like, you know what? I'm stressed about this too much. This is not a good fit for me. You need
Yeah.
to go in a different direction. So am I? I think I am. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to take me the way I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And working for somebody else, although all of our clients are our bosses in some regards and we serve them. But at the end of the day, I always say being a business owner, it means you work half days and you get to pick which 12. So, it's just kind of like get the work done.
One way or
So
another.
that's exactly right. So let's talk about some specific challenges that you had of kind of, could be from anywhere from May of 2016 to where you are today. Like when you look back across that journey, what have been some of the challenges that you have overcome to get you where you are?
Confidence was definitely one of them. You go through this course and you're like, okay, I understand how to do bookkeeping, and the software shouldn't be that hard, and I understand the basics, but when you actually have to apply that to your first client, there is like total shock, awe, and I have no clue what the hell I'm doing. So that was definitely the first hurdle. And I think in combination with bringing on 3 clients at once at the end of the year, one of those clients was good to go. The second one was pretty good to go, but they had transactions coming from overseas. And the third one was a conversion from desktop. There was like the amount of knowledge that I learned in those first 30, 60 days was amazing. The number of mistakes I made, I can't even tell you how many mistakes I made and how many times I went back and said, okay, we're going to try this one more time and see if this works. You know, to get through those first 60 days and then sit back and go, wow, look at what I've done. And look, I can really do this. And there's hope. And wow, this is like real. This is possible. I can really do this was absolutely amazing. I think that was probably the biggest hurdle. Since then, it's just been, each new client is a new hurdle because they're not, Joe Schmo who's, doing consulting business. They're not all exactly the same. There's always lots of learning that goes on. And as I've grown, I've been taking on clients that have been around for 15, 20 years. And so they already have a lot of systems and processes in place. And so trying to incorporate that into what I do and how I do things and train them to say, I think there's a better way to do that, I think ends up being some of those bigger hurdles that I take on. And that's just with every new client for me. And so it's a relief each, you get past that 30, 60 days, you're like, okay, good. We're on the right track. Let's go. So I've had some staff growing pains, just the volume of work too has been other pains that have just made me cry at times.
And as we discussed, that's before we got on this call, I was like, ask if you're busy and you said yes. And I said, well, that's better than the other side of things, right? Or the other not having enough. And and let me ask you this. I mean, that's great. And it sounds like the key to getting that confidence was just freaking doing what you had to do.
Yep. Diving in. Feet first.
Yeah, that's feel the fear and do it anyway, right? The book that we always quote talking about, because there's no other way to truly overcome it. Yes, we do need to be armed with the information and we do need to understand, but just like with any type of skill, if I take a class on swimming and I go to the best instructor and I understand the best principles until I actually jump in the pool or the pond or whatever. I don't typically swim in ponds, but just thinking back now to Caddyshack. But until I jump in and actually do that, all the knowledge that I have is really nothing.
Right.
It's got to be combined with actual experience. And so I know that that's been key for you. So let me ask you this. So with your business, do you ever physically have to go into a client's place?
No.
Okay. So if you were on that Alaskan cruise this year and say it did have internet and say you chose to work, could you run your business from that Alaskan cruise?
You betcha.
Okay. And do you serve clients only in Colorado, Denver area?
No. In fact, just off the top of my head, I can think of 3 clients that I have locally. Everybody else is located across the country.
Wow.
So, we communicate via email. Occasionally it might be via phone. So, I have a standard communication rule. I'll typically under
Yeah.
most circumstances. We won't talk about January. I'll respond back in 24 hours. And so if I were to take a day off in the middle of the week, it's not totally detrimental. It's really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. How has it changed your family life?
Oh, my kids have loved having me at home. My daughter's now in college, and for her to come home and say, "Hey, come get me from the train," I'm like, "Okay, great, I'll go get you from the train. Where are we going?" Um, my older son loves the fact that I'm home when he gets home from school. He can participate in activities. He's on swim team, and just knowing that I have that flexibility and that freedom to go get him or to go take him or to go attend a meet and not have to worry about that boss looking over you going, where are you going, you're taking more time off again, is just absolutely refreshing and such a relief for my family. And the 4 or 5 year old is kind of learning that mom works from home, but he doesn't quite get it. He just knows he has to go to preschool so mom can go to work. So that's okay.
From his memory, he's never known anything different now.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
So that's tremendous. I mean, that literally it gives me chills, because I know that I know the struggle and the work and the dedication and the risk that you took to get there, and so you should be commended for that.
Thank you.
And proud of what you have done. Now, I know that you want to do more, and that's a great segue for us to kind of talk about the next step. And one of the things we always talk about is being an entrepreneur, being a bookkeeping business owner, is that every time we get to the top of a new mountain, there's another one behind it.
Mhm.
And for me, that's a positive thing, right? It's not a negative. It just means we're growing as an individual. We're getting better as a business owner. We're getting better as a leader. We're getting better in everything that we do, but we never stop climbing those mountains. So when you look out to the west, right behind probably your house, you can see one mountain, but when you get to the top of that, there's a higher one.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And finally you get to, what is it, Mount Evans or whatever the highest peak is in Colorado. But then over there's higher mountains. So let's kind of move over to the opportunity that is in front of you now. So the kind of but first of all, before we get to that, like, where do you want to take this thing? What's your vision? What's your end game here?
When I first started, I said I would have been happy, just to bring home something for my family, just to help pay the bills, help pay the mortgage. But at that point, some of it was also just to keep my mind active, and to do something that I enjoyed for a change. I didn't mind my banking industry job, but I didn't, fully enjoy it. So that was my initial thought. As things have gone on, and as I look at the numbers, and as I start talking to my husband, and we're looking at this and seeing where this thing can go, I would love to take this to the next step. And for me, that would be easily making mid six figures. I've probably got some employees. Maybe they're more employees than contractors, maybe contractors, not employees. I don't know. But I really want to take this to that next big step, where there's more income, which helps pay some of the bills. But there's also more freedom for me. And so what I'm looking at right now is, how do I get myself out of that day-to-day? I'm sitting here with a list of checks that I need to prepare for a client. Who can I give that to? I want to do something different. I want to continue to increase my knowledge with nonprofits and what's going on in the world, and how can I use that knowledge to help my clients. And right now I can't do that because I'm so stuck in the day-to-day stuff. And so it's more of that, moving more to the CEO position. And how do I do that? But then I also stop and think, and I'm like, well, what is my company? And do I have, you hear this brand thing, and I'm like, well, what's my brand? I don't even know what my brand is. What does my company stand for? And so that's kind of why we're having this phone call, a conversation today, is to kind of help me figure out what steps do I need to take to get to that. I have a logo, great. I have a name, great. But what am I? And it's not necessarily me, but what does my business stand for? Because it's not about me anymore.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I would advise you to do strongly is, you said you wanted to be mid six figures and you wanted to have contractors. I would challenge you, you really don't want those things. You want what those things are going to give you, right?
True.
And so to really outline in specific detail what that means for your family. Like when I earn, not if, but when I earn mid six figures, this means that I'm going to be able to we're going to be able to pay off our mortgage in 5 years. That means that I have paid for my daughters and all of my children's education without putting them in debt. It means that I was home every single night, not working at 5 o'clock. It means that we were able to take off 6 weeks a year and do this, getting very specific about that, because now, rather than being motivated by the externals, we're motivated by the internals. We're motivated by the results that we're going to get.
Right.
And as we start to talking about this opportunity, which is what you have before you, it puts everything into guidelines. It gives us a framework in which we can make decisions. Is this decision moving me toward that, or is it moving me away? It's doing one of the two.
Right.
So first things first is to really get specific on what this is going to do for you and your family. I would involve getting your family involved in that process as well, because it obviously impacts them directly. But at the end of the day, this is your business, but we all know that it takes the proverbial village when we have our own business. There's sacrifice that not only you make, but your family does as well.
Right.
So to you and to everyone out there is really get specific on what this is doing for you. Because just like when you started it, you didn't have these visions of grandeur of taking it to where you are now, but here you are, and you start realizing, oh, this is fun. I mean, it's actually fun.
Right.
And I feel important. I feel like I matter, and I'm using my brain, and all these things. So it's good, and I want more of that, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the things that matter are really what we want to spell out.
Right.
And so I just encourage you to do that.
I thank you.
Yeah, we all need to do that. And also, and I say this pretty much to everybody that I speak with, is to really celebrate the success that you have had. I mean, Amy, to get 18 nonprofit clients in the period of, now we're looking at 2.5, not even 2.5 years. That is a tremendous feat. I mean, there's very few people that can do that. So whatever you've been doing, it's working, right?
Yes.
And so now we're talking about changing your role in the business. We're talking about, hey, I want to become what we call a mini empire. I want to have 30 or more clients. I want to start systematizing and really offboarding. And I know that you're coming to an event we're putting on next month called OPP, Outstanding Processes and People, where we're going to dive into that. So I think what we want to talk about and just want to make sure with you is kind of going back to your brand, right? And kind of what do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm still trying to figure that out some days.
Well, when you figure it out, please let me know.
Okay.
At 47, almost 48, I've still not figured it out. But I hope to one day.
Yeah.
My dad's 72, and he's like, well, tell me how. So,
yeah, exactly.
It's just perpetual.
It's just out there in the far, far land. Someday we'll figure it out.
Exactly. So let's talk about brand. So why do you think that your brand is important? Why do you think? Why are we talking about this?
When you think of larger companies, you think of Pepsi. Well, we all know what Pepsi is, and you don't have to do anything about Pepsi. And to a certain extent, I would like something similar for my own business. And so the name is not unique. The name doesn't stand out. The name doesn't necessarily reflect maybe what I do or the services I provide. But when I started and I couldn't come up with a name, it was the name, and I moved forward. And we just said, okay, I gotta go. We're done playing games. So I want it to be something that could be memorable for people when they say, oh yeah, I know what that is. Or, oh yeah, hey, I heard about that company and they do this. Whereas, and I know that's going to take time and it's not going to, happen overnight, but I want something, and it's kind of like, I'm at that point now where I'm thinking, okay, I'm a couple years in, maybe I should do this now, versus you hear of companies that are 30 years old. Oh yeah, we changed our name to blah, blah, blah. And you're like, huh, what? Why'd you do that now? So I'm kind of thinking this is, if I'm going to truly start to spend money to market for some marketing, and I'm going to truly take this to that next level, I'm thinking like now's the time maybe to do some branding, figure out who I am, figure out who this company is, what we stand for, so that I've got that solid foundation moving forward. Should I hire employees or independent contractors, that they also can buy into that same philosophy, that same mission, that same vision, and help me carry the business forward, because I don't always want to be that only person that can talk to clients. And right now I feel like I have to partly because I brought them on, but partly because I know the conversations I want to have. I know how those conversations in my head need to occur, but how do I convey that to somebody else if I want them to help me take that next step with the business?
Okay. All right. So, do you think that your current name has ever gotten in the way of you not getting a client?
No, I don't.
Okay. So that's one of the things. So, obviously you've built a great business and the name did not get in the way, but you're right. As you scale the business and as you start to bring on others, the brand becomes more important. So initially, just like you said, you just went with any name. And what's the name of your business now?
ADEM Bookkeeping.
ADEM Bookkeeping, which sounds like I know to be some initials of some people that are significant in your life, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have this, and would this hinder you from getting another 18 clients? Absolutely not. But what it comes back to is what we talked about in the exercise before. What do you stand for, right? You said that. What do we stand for? Well, you stand for the things that you want in your life, the freedom, the flexibility, and really you stand for the help that you provide, and you stand for all these different things. But how do you take it from your stance to other stance? And let's talk about what a brand is first, okay? Because there's a lot of misconceptions and definitions about what a brand is. But a brand is a perception, okay? And perception is reality. So it doesn't matter what the reality is, what your clients see or your prospective clients, it's their perception of what they think of you, right? That is the definition of a perception, but their perception of you. And that's what a brand represents. When we see that Pepsi logo, being a guy sitting in Atlanta, I almost hit the delete button on you there when you said Pepsi, because we get in trouble here. They'll run us off the road if we say that word. But if you look at Coke or you look at Pepsi, those are unique brands, and those have been branded over hundreds. Well, Coke in the case has been branded over 100 years, and Pepsi not too far behind. And as you said, it's not something that's done overnight. But a brand is basically a perception. It's a perception of who you are as an organization. But more important, organizations are inorganic things. They don't really exist. There are people that are behind that.
Right.
So your brand is you and your mentality and your philosophy and where you want to take this business. So that's why I preambled it with that, because I knew we were going to tie it back here. But if we think about it from the word brand, I mean, if you get cattle's, okay, so back in your area, right, in the Old West, there was just free range, which means my cattle could be running with your cattle, could be running with 14 other people. And how did I tell one from the other? We branded them, right? So we've all seen the cowboy movies where they take the hot brand iron. And yes, I'll probably get some hate mail from PETA people, and I understand I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that's how they identified their cattle. It's immediately how I could tell what belonged to me and what belonged to someone else. And that's what we do here, right? We're saying, this is what I stand for. This is my property. This is who I am.
Right.
And your brand, as we always talk about in marketing, needs to attract and it needs to repel. And so one of the practical exercises that I want to give you a resource that I would suggest that you gobble up as soon as possible. And that's a book by the name of Scaling Up. Scaling Up. It's by, sitting in my floor, it's by Vern Harnish. I'm sitting here looking at it because I refer to it that often.
Okay.
Vern Harnish, it's Scaling Up. He has a couple of other ones as well, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. But brand is part of just the whole overarching thing, right? What you want others to think about you.
Right.
So let's talk about when this brand is out, when it's aired. Like when I'm looking at you, what is that perception? What do you want me to feel as and let's just take it back from categories, from a prospective client. What do you want me to feel as a result of your brand? And a brand is not a logo. A brand is not a name. A brand is everything that is perceived about your business. But what are some of those attributes?
Somebody who cares about you and where you are. Somebody who wants to see you grow. See, and this is where I end up in trouble because I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm gonna treat you like your family because you are family, and you respect people who are in your family. You are patient and kind and understanding. And no matter their flaws, you accept them as they are.
Okay. So another exercise for you also is to really start thinking about this, setting aside some time. Doesn't have to be a lot of time, but
Right.
writing down words that are the things that you want people to think. Just what you said right there, but really getting granular about it. That's the first exercise. And then I would also start having conversations with my clients and listening to, obviously you're having conversations with your clients all the time, but asking them their perceptions of you.
Okay.
And first exercise is to do yours, right? And do it as much as possible. And then start to speak with your clients. And obviously you built up a rapport. They probably feel that they can be honest and upfront with you, and just preamble it with, hey, I'm trying to really figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up, haha, that sort of thing. But, if you were to describe, have words and all this that describes me, it describes our service, it describes our relationship, what would those be? And what I'm looking for here is some sort of what matches between what you said and what matches between what they say.
Right.
Because again, it's perception. This is your perception of what you want. Now, is that what they're already perceiving?
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of alignment here. So the good news is that you already have a brand. We all have a brand. We all have a perception. Okay.
Right.
So you've already done a lot of work. And immediately what we think is that, oh, it's a logo, it's a tagline, it's these colors, it's those are just part of it. Those are like the outcomes. This is all before. And a brand, I'll tell you, is something that is crafted. It's not created overnight.
Right.
We're still learning ours. Like I'm not happy with our brand. I'm not happy, but we're evolving. And while we don't want to change our names, left and right and all of this, we want to have stability, but also it evolves, right? If we look at there's certain brands, and when we pick out Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they are very stalwart in theirs, right? They've held it. Coke is like the number one or number two word recognized in the world, right? Behind please or thank you or something like that.
Right.
People know it.
Right.
We're probably not going, I won't say it's impossible, but the chances of us creating Coke again are not, and nobody can recreate Coke because that's unique. Every brand is unique, just like every person. So it is DNA for an organization in that there is no two sets that are alike. It is unique. You can tell yours from everybody else's. Right. So one thing to avoid is going and becoming the copycat brand. What is everybody else doing? I intentionally don't look at my competition and people, I have marketing people say, you're foolish if you're not doing that. No, I want to keep blinders on, and I want to listen to my customer. I want to talk to my customer. I want to hear their words because they'll tell me how to develop my brand, not some outside organization that may or may not have done that exercise, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
But that's kind of this first step.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And also realizing that it's not getting in your way right now.
No.
But you're smart in that you're recognizing now that this is going to be an important element to take your business where you want to go.
Right.
Because if you told me, hey, you know what, I want to get another 7 clients and I'm thinking about getting a brand, probably not that important. I mean, it's worked for you up to now, so I wanted to, one thing you said that I want to kind of track back on is that as you start to talk about spending marketing money, you have things that work. And I don't know if you ever really have to spend a lot of money in marketing in your case. When you exhaust all of the means that we, outline, then at that point you might want to. But I think that you probably, and I'm just guessing, you probably 10x your business with the methods that you've already used.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that we can look at areas beyond.
Yeah, and maybe it's not so much the marketing. Maybe it's more the more regular communication to have with clients or future clients, whether it's the blog or it's the posts that are created by me versus what I do now is I go find cool articles and I post them everywhere. So I think it's some more internal communication and creation marketing type stuff than not necessarily, spending money and flyers and wasting paper type stuff.
So that's a great point. But going back to the brand, is that this is an ongoing process, and realize that you don't have to be speedy in the implementation of this. Or this is something that we're going to grow up. Think of it like the oak tree, right? That you're planting a seed today, and yeah, it'll be a little sproutling. And hey, I've got a name that I settled on, right? And that name should represent the perception that I want to portray. And that name probably will come from this list that you're going to make and the list that your clients give you. And I would just start really incorporating this into the conversations that you're having with your clients, and possibly just thinking back to the clients that you have. Why did you get them? What did they tell you? I can guarantee you go back to your emails and to your conversations in your head, and they say, you know what, we're going with you, and here's why. Mm-hmm. Because you cared, or because you had a passion, or you had all these different things. Right. And this is a kind of, think of it like a word cloud type of thing, which is not, that's a feature, right? But the real essence of who you are comes from that word cloud. Definitely. In there. And so that I just want to take the pressure off of you in that regard of doing that.
No, and I like the idea of asking my clients, because that was something that I hadn't thought of. I'm like, okay, well, I can certainly come up with words and whatever in my head, but it goes back to that perception of what do they perceive to be the reasons why.
Yeah. When we were talking about your evolution, you mentioned something about, you said the EDs, which for everybody is executive directors. You said that when you were replying to ads that you took something to involve with what you took off of the nightmare or something. What was the exact phrase that you used with what you did for executive directors?
Oh, that's a good question now. So
we can always go back and check the notes, but what, just in sentiments, like what do you think that the real benefit to using you for an executive director is?
Well, I've walked in their shoes. And so I am very well aware of the hats that they wear on any daily basis. And for a lot of them, they have a passion for their nonprofit, and the bookkeeping and the financial side is definitely not, they didn't go to school for that. They came up with this harebrained idea, hey, I'm going to go start a nonprofit and let's see what happens. And that financial side is always the last thing that they want to think of. And it's the last thing that they have any desire to do. And so having been an executive director, albeit interim, and I didn't do that very good of a job, but I kept the organization alive. I know the juggling of the hats. You've got, development on your butt, and you've got to raise this kind of money. And then you've got year-end appeals, and you've got programs you got to run, and you got to, you've got all this other stuff, which to you as an executive director is so much more important than the financial side. Having that relief of knowing that somebody can take care of those financials for you is what I do.
So if I were probably speaking with your executive director, she'd probably say, you know what, or he would say, the bookkeeping's just become an afterthought. Yep. I don't even think about it anymore. So these phrases right here are something that's going to birth a name, right? But these are more than just a name. They are the perception that they have, right, and their results. And so as we are building this up, as we're having an electronic file, or I keep everything pretty much in a notebook in terms of stuff like this, it's really important. So in that case, if something burns down, there goes my life and my exercise and my life's work. But anyway, such is life. But these things are going to start to come about. So, things that would go from my brain is afterthought bookkeeping. That's not a good name, but no. It starts the process. It right. starts now I'm thinking in a vein, and, I don't even have to think about it anymore. You don't even have to think about it anymore. Bookkeeping. That's not a good name, but I'm starting to go down the road of getting to that right name.
Right.
And again, that's not what a brand is. It's a component of a brand.
Right.
That's like saying a car is a wheel. No, a wheel is yet one of 1,000 parts in a car.
Right.
A name is the wheel, right? It's what people hear, but it's only one of the elements that they do, right? And so attributes like that, feelings, right? That's another one right there is what are the feelings that they have? Mm-hmm. Because you don't serve nonprofit organizations. You serve people who happen to run nonprofit organizations.
Correct.
So for everybody out there, you don't serve businesses, you serve individuals that happen to own businesses. In this case, they happen to have a vested interest in the nonprofit.
Right.
Another thing, do you ever have to sit in physically or virtually in like board meetings?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I've been on a couple of nonprofits, and that was my bank. Oh, I did not like it.
Audit committees. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Let's go through the audit. What did you
yeah.
do wrong? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me everything I did wrong. So this is another great place. So these are external players. So you have within the nonprofit world, you have some uniqueness here. So you've made your list, right? And now you've talked to your clients, which mainly I would assume is the executive director in the case, or the assistant executive director. But now you're speaking with a board, and now you're speaking with the auditors. So these are some other great sources to get perceptions.
Definitely.
Right? Like, wow, your books are always clean and on spot. I'm just making up names and stuff like that. Well, they're telling you words, but they're meaning something, right? Like, crap, we can get in and out. We love following Amy because our audits are easy. We make a ton of realization on them. It's just a win-win for everybody. But these are other places in which you can start to grab perceptions. You can grab words. You can grab their feelings as you start to craft this.
Cool. Yeah.
And before you ever say, hey, here's our name, here's our tag, here's our color scheme, here's our website, here's our brochures. Before you start to do all that, this is what you're doing. You're building up a cultural dossier, if you will. I just made that up as I'm saying it, but
sounds good. Sounds fancy.
I'm going to trademark. I'm trademarking that a cultural dossier, to where now these are things as you start to say, yeah, this is a key thing. What you're doing, and the reason that I told you to invest in scaling up, is coming up with your core beliefs. You can call them core values, but they're core beliefs. Like, what do we believe? Well, and these are what really dive in. And within our organization, that this is a process that we are going through. And we're finding, at first I was like, core beliefs.
Whatever.
That's just like a corporate thing that you do, right? No, it becomes important because just like I advised you, it becomes kind of like your thesis. It becomes your manifesto or your guidelines to make decisions moving forward. Right. So one of our core values is value first. So if we're like, okay, well, it's going to cost some money, but let's give it to our student. Let's give it to them because this is value first. Yeah, we may never get anything for it.
Right.
Fine.
It's okay.
But we're putting value into the marketplace and we believe in that, right? If we were profit first, then that would have a different philosophy. And there's not a wrong or a right set of core values, although I think there are some better ones or much better ones than the other ones, right?
There are some personal preferences, yes.
Yeah. But what you're building here as part of this exercise is something that now when you start to bring on team, when you start, whether that's contractor or an employee, obviously you know the differences between them, but it really starts to kind of help you formulate a job scorecard. Like you're bringing somebody on more for their, not so much for their experience and abilities, but their drive, their passion, who they are as a person, and their smarts.
Right.
And so this is key in keeping people long term. Because we live in a world today that people are going to have. I forgot, my son graduated college last month or in December, and I think he's going to have, on average, they're going to have changed jobs 18 times.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, people don't stay around. And I think one of the reasons is, just the nature of our world. But number two is that this misalignment of, and understanding that there's other opportunity out there, but this misalignment between who we are as individuals and this corporation that we're working for, this company or this boss.
Right.
And so this is instrumental also in bringing that aboard. And so the thing you don't want to do right now is to go, let me go hire a branding agency. They can help you. And they're great, right?
Right.
But they're external to your organization. And really, as you start to formulate this, I would encourage you also to look at some of the bigger brands and how they have branded themselves, like Apple, IBM, and reading kind of some of their histories, or whether it be on Wikipedia, because you start to pick up on things here. There is no proven set formula for how you create your brand other than it coming from within.
Right.
And I know that gives you, your practical exercises here are long. They're long in duration.
Right. That's okay. It doesn't need to happen overnight. It's that, maybe I should start working on this. This seems kind of important to some long-term longevity. Because this isn't a fly-by-night anymore. This is really real.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
here and I'm doing well, and this is feeling good, and this is where I want to stay. So at least for the next 20 years, that gets me to 65. Maybe longer. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's perfect. But it all still comes back to uh, the founder, and that's you, right? You're
Right.
chief cook and bottle washer right now. I
Yep.
mean, you have some help, but at the end of the day, if something goes wrong,
It's all
a check
me.
doesn't get printed, it's you, right?
Yep.
But that's going to change. And you were so smart to be doing this now rather than waiting until you have team and start thinking, at least moving in that direction, because this is an instrumental part. And ask me how I know, because we're going through the same thing. And a lot of times my MO is, and you know this about me, I put stuff out there and get it going and then come back later and refine it.
Right.
And I know that it gets results for people and it helps people. It's not perfect, but I don't let fear paralyze me. I'm just kind of like what you talked about earlier. I just jump.
Yeah.
Just go and do it.
Yeah.
So as kind of closure here, what do you really hope that a brand would do for you? Like at the end of the day, when you have this at the end, when you look back upon in 20 years from now, what would this brand have done for you, your family, your business, the team, the clients that you serve?
If for my family, I would hope that they realize that it's because of whatever it ends up being. Um, you know, I always think back to my obituary, partly because of some training that we had done, and unfortunately, there've been a lot of deaths around me of lately. But it always goes back to, what are people going to say about me? And it's not so much, if they could say, hey, that business allowed her to be this type of person, or because of this business, we learned that Amy was XYZ person, and her passion and her always willing to give, or something along those lines. It would be nice. I don't know. It's kind of hard because I don't want to think about my own death, and I don't want to think about what people would say when I die. But something that we can all be proud of that says, hey, it allowed us to spend more time as a family, or it allowed us to take these wonderful vacations and spend time, or whatever that might be down the road. Hopefully lots of vacations, lots of trips, lots of seeing the world would be fun.
Absolutely. Okay, well that's good. That's and that's real important for forming this brand, is staying on that message.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're looking at making decisions as part of your brand, as part of your core beliefs, and all of this sticks together, and that's why I recommended that, it makes all of your decisions so much simpler, right? Makes them, hey, is this you hear, is this on brand? Right? Is this on brand? That's basically saying, is this who we are? Are we doing something that's true to us and to our nature, or are we deviating?
Right.
And if we're deviating, we don't do it. If it's true, then we possibly do it.
Right.
A couple of books that I want to recommend to you. One, Building a Story Brand. I think it's by Donald Miller.
Okay.
Building a Story Brand. Yeah, Donald Miller. That is a great book. There's another one called Contagious. I don't think I have. It's Jonah something, but Contagious. Obviously, you can find it. And the last one is called Hooked. And this guy, I can't remember his name. Sorry, I have these books. I have a whole room full of books that these are ones that I have read that are really, really good. And again, they're just meant to. None of this stuff is meant to be anecdotal. Like the brand, here's your brand, right? It's meant for you to have that direction, for you to start thinking, how do I make this a brand? How do I make this extend beyond me? How do I give DNA to my organization? Mm-hmm. And that permeates to your clients, to your team, and to your vendors, and anybody else who comes in contact with it. Cool. But I guarantee you, when we see that brand, whenever it is quote unquote final, I'm putting in air quotes right now, whenever it is final, it's going to be Amy. You're going to look at it and go, that's me. Yeah. Right. That's me. And it lives beyond, my life here on earth. Hopefully, maybe not. It doesn't really matter, because at the core of it, I know that you're providing value to people, that you believe in value first, and that you have done a lot of good in the world with what you've done already. And that by itself is a brand. Right. So Kudos.
Thank
All right, so let's summarize here, Amy. What are your action items as a result of today?
So I'm going to figure out me, literally.
Okay, there you go. All right.
And then after, I come up with a list of who I am and what I believe and what I think, to me, it's what do I give and what do I provide to my clients? Then I'll go out and I'll have conversations with my clients and possibly some of their board of directors that I know or some of the CPAs that I work with, and then kind of mesh that together and see where does it feel really good and what kind of really lines up. And if I've got a little outlier, I need to figure that one out, and use that to start figuring out what this company stands for and which direction we need to head in. And I know right now we're in the right place, but I want it in writing to make sure that we stay on that course and not deviate.
I love it.
Because it's me. I'm in control right now, but I don't always want to be in control.
Well, you'll still maintain the control.
Just a different level of control.
But you're in control, but you're not controlling.
Right.
And there's a big difference there. Now, the big takeaway here is that, building a brand is intentional. It's not coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that happens over time. It's something that is great. And you have a brand and you've already built a brand. You've already have a perception and a reputation. And fortunately, those are both very good.
Right. Yeah.
In the industry. So take nothing away from that this is going to hamper you in the slightest initially. Right.
Right. Yep.
But taking it possibly where you want to go, it'll just help you to propel yourself.
Yep. Wonderful.
Amy, any follow-up questions? Anything else that I can do for you? I know that we've got other things, but our time is almost up here.
Oh, that's good. I have a new list of books to go buy and read in my spare time, of which is a little short these days, but we'll figure that out too. So
yeah,
it's not immediate.
Yeah, get Audible. It's funny. I have CD. I still have CDs. You remember what those things were?
I do.
I got some cassette players. Yeah. Yeah, I have nothing to play them on. I had to go buy something to play my CDs on the other day. I'm like, where do I play? Nothing on my computer or anything like that anymore.
A drive? A what? What's that thing?
Yeah. But thank you so much for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Amy McLaughry. All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Ben.
Didn't mean to cut you off there. Say that. All right. So if you would like to hear more great conversations like today's that we had with Amy, who was very kind to come on with us, then I want you to go over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There you'll find all of our shows, the show notes, some resources and goodies, all sorts of kind of cool things there. If you'd like to be a guest on the show like Amy was here today, then there is a Be a Guest application that is also on the ilovebookkeeping.com website. And finally, you can find out more about our courses like Bookkeeper Business Launch, Bookkeeper Elite, Tax Business Launch, and Money Guides on ilovebookkeeping.com. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being a great bookkeeping professional. Listen, if you would like to hear more great conversations just like today's, then I want you to head on over to ilovebookkeeping.com. There, you're going to find all of the shows, the notes, and some other great goodies that we have for you there. Now, if you'd like to be a guest on the I Love Bookkeeping show, there is a link that says Be a Guest. Go in there, and we'll walk you through the process of getting on the show. And finally, to discover more about our programs, go to the courses page on the ilovebookkeeping.com site. There you have it, another great episode of I Love Bookkeeping. Thank you for being a proud listener, and thank you for being a bookkeeping professional. Enjoy the rest of your week.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks.